Hi, and welcome back again. Doug Kyle Holtz here, and this is my FTH 212 Module 3 assignment for striker fired pistols. So this week we're going to go through, and we have a couple different parts of our assignment we're going to talk about. We're going to field strip the new dagger, PSA dagger that we received, and we're going to go through and talk about all the critical inspection points and bearing surfaces and locking surfaces on this that you need to check while doing your troubleshooting procedures. So that'll be part one. We're going to talk through several different steps on that and what we're going to do. In part two, we're going to go through and show how we get headspace measurements on this particular type of firearm. So from here, after we do our safety checks here, I've got my iPro on already. There is no source of feed whatsoever, and there's nothing inside the chamber of the weapon. There's no ammunition on or around my workspace. Since everything's good to go at this point, I'll go ahead and chamber flag us out, so that we know that the weapon's safe and there is no possibility of any obstruction in the barrel. As you can see from the tip of the barrel, my chamber flag goes all the way through. So what I'm going to do next, since the assignment didn't really say that I had to video myself disassembling the weapon, I'm going to go ahead and field strip it, and I'll talk you through the components, and then we'll start talking about all the different bearing surfaces and inspection points you're going to want to look while troubleshooting to help identify what problems this particular pistol that walks into your shop may have. So I'll be right back with you. We're going to go through and strip everything down, get it into its working components, and give you an over-my-shoulder view of what we're going to do while we're talking. After that, we'll jump right into head spacing and we'll finish out the video. So be right back with you. Okay, so here are our 5 major sub-assemblies with the PSA dagger completely field stripped to where we were supposed to have it. So talking through some of our finer points here, we want to make sure that our rails are good, free of burrs, deformity, all that stuff. We want to go through and make sure our locking block is nice and smooth with no edges, no sharp edges on it that could cause burrs, deformities, and so on. We want to make sure it gets good contact. Our takedown lever, we want to make sure it has good spring tension and so on. There's not uneven wear, not damage, things like that. Our mag catch, we want to make sure that the spring is in the proper dimension and it actually falls back into place once released. Our disconnector, we want to make sure that when we're manipulating the trigger here, pushing the trigger bar forward, that we do actually get a release to help with the cocking. All right. Oop, come on. There we go. All right. Lastly, we want to talk about our mag catch here. We want to make sure that our mag catch actually moves and is not restricted by the channel that was cut into the frame for it. We also want to make sure it's got the proper spring tension and the spring isn't broken. Oh, man, I forgot about the sear. We've got our sear here, which is one of the most vital portions of this. Make sure the geometry is correct, hasn't been bent, broken, damaged, or have a garage gunsmith job on it. Same with the rails. Don't polish them, please. God. With our slide, a lot of similar components. We want to make sure that our rails are good to go on this, no deformations and so on. Our barrel bearing surface is good to go. There's no deformations on that. That our front locking surface our top locking surface and front locking surface married up with the barrel and with the slide here are good to go. We also want to make sure there's no issues with our breech face, like deformity, so on and so forth. Our extractor, we want to make sure that it is sharp. It does still have tension and move. We want to make sure that the face is not broken on it, causing issues that could cause your rim to tear apart. And then we have our sights. We want to make sure they're present first, not broken, not dented, not having issues, whenever we look at them. So that covers our slide assembly. For the magazine, we're only looking at a couple parts here. Our follower, make sure it's not bent, broken. Our feed lips are correct, the right angle and so on, and not bent. Our spring is good to go, and it's not completely destroyed or coming apart at the hinges. And then also the inside of the magazine body itself. We want to make sure that we have tension on the bottom floor plate here and it doesn't walk its way loose as well. On our barrel, we already talked about our top locking surfaces, but we want to make sure that they do have a good edge to them, that they do interact correctly whenever we place them in to the weapon here to ensure that we're getting good lockup, that we're properly getting what we need out of it. Additionally, we want to look at our feeding lug here. We want to make sure that it's not deformed, bent, has burrs on it, or anything that could cause problems with the feeding portion of it, of the cycle of operations. We also want to go through and make sure that our sear lug is free and clear of any burrs, deformations, and so on, so that when it engages the sear, it's not causing damage to the sear as well and potentially causing a runaway gun. Additionally, we want to check our safety. So we pull it all the way back, it feels smooth, we push forward, nothing happens. But if I depress my safety plunger, I can see that I've got my striker plunging through and I can actually let go of it and it stays in place. So you get it back out and check the safety one more time. And yeah, I believe that covers everything we needed to talk about for the slide. For our recoil spring assembly, we only have a couple major component or minor components here, which is going to be our guide rod. Make sure it's not bent, that it's not broken, it doesn't have any type of burrs or deformations in it that could cause impingement on this spring. We also want to make sure our spring is complete and it's not been clipped down, causing issues with, this is very vital in locking, chambering, unlocking, cocking, and so on. This recoil spring assembly is very, very important. And then we want to look at our bearing surfaces in comparison to our barrel here, which unfortunately I forgot to talk about. Well, I haven't even got to the barrel yet. But we want to make sure that, our tension points where we get all of our lockup on this and pieces go together are not wearing out and giving early wear signs or damage to any other components in here. And that covers our recoil spring assembly. For our barrel, we've got a couple things we want to talk about, all right? I'm going to start from the operational side first, and we want to make sure we talk about our feed ramp. The geometry of this is important. The angle of attack is important. The surface of this should be smooth and, when possible, polished. The chamber needs to be smooth inside, but it doesn't need to be polished. You don't want, during obturation, you don't want the brass to actually stick to that and cause a failure to extract and you rip the case off, or rip the rim off the casing. So you want the brass to actually shrink back away from it and not bind to a polished surface. When looking into the bore, either with a bore scope or using a light and so on, we want to check the overall bore for its health. We want to make sure there's no raising in the lands and grooves. They've still got sharp edges and so on. That goes for the rifling too. And then we've got our crown, our muzzle. We want to make sure that that's got no dings, dents, deformations, making it look like it's been banged up and so on, because this has drastic effect on our accuracy. We want to make sure the gas comes out evenly. So we talked about our top locking surface here, but not just here. We also want to look at our barrel hood here and make sure there's no damage on that as well. And that pretty much covers our breakdown of everything. If I had a wish and there was something I would like to see, I would actually like to be able to see the disconnector move while the slide is together and so on. So if I was ever to make a cutaway with this thing, that would be the portion I'd cut away so that I could see how the sear, the disconnector, and the lug on the striker work together. And let's see, I think I forgot a couple things I didn't talk about on the frame here, which would be your striker hole. You don't want burrs in that, don't want it plugged. We want the channel to be free and clear for the striker and so on. So hopefully that helps out with that. As for, do I feel comfortable at this point with doing this work? Yeah, with Glock models. I don't own an M&P. I don't own any other polymer style pistols. The Glock clones are super easy for me, so I've got to get my hands on a couple of the other ones just to become familiar with the different terminology and some of the different components. Okay, for part two, we're going to talk about head spacing. Okay, we're going to do a headspace check on our pistol and talk about why it's important. So I don't have a belted Magnum, but talking through our straight wall cases here, they actually headspace based off of the opening here, the mouth of the case. For a rifle, you're going to headspace everything off of the head of the cartridge all the way up to the datum line, which is an imaginary line inside the shoulder here to give you your headspace. With a belted Magnum, it would be based off of the belt to the datum line. So it's very vital that we check the headspace to make sure there's no deformations in the weapon, but also to ensure that the chamber was cut to the correct depth. To do so, we have no spring inside here. We're just going to do this manually, and we'll drop in our headspace gauge. And we're going to push forward, and just with finger pressure, let it slide right up underneath the extractor, and we will make sure that it's locked in place by looking to see if the barrel hood is flush and if the locking surface here is in place correctly, which this is. So if we were to do it again, we know for a fact we don't have to fight denting the front side or marring the front side of our extractor. We're up underneath and the barrel is locked into place. If we throw the no-go gauge in, we will try and do the same thing. But as we start going through to lock up, we cannot, without forcing it and damaging the weapon, we cannot get the barrel hood here to come up into its place to get the full lock. Additionally, the locking surface is not engaged yet, so the barrel's not locked into place properly. So that's how we know we did the headspace check correctly, is that we got a lock on the go and the barrel hood came into the fully closed position, extending the barrel to its point of stop inside the frame. Or just like we had with the no-go gauge, it's not quite getting there because the dimensions are off. This is important for safety. I mean, your gun could blow up on you if it has improper headspace. You could have a case head separation here And, you know, all that gas and everything is coming outside that polymer straight to your hand.